All right, and we are live now. We've got a little bit of camera stuff going on. We'll get that figured out as we're going. And then Terry is on his way back. He will be joining us in a little bit. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with some introductions. We'll just go around, brief description of who you are, and then this is a PC stream. We're talking about Gears on PC. So, do you mainly play on PC or console? And do you play with mouse and keyboard or controller? So, Toby, I guess we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, firstly, thanks for having me on. Like a PC stream, I couldn't say no. When Terry was talking about the potential for a Gears stream on Tac-Com with PC involved. So yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I play on PC. I did compete on console from I want to say early days was 2006 Gears 1, and I went to my first event, was it back at Gears 3, Gears UE, and then around the Gears 4 time period, when just after I started getting into commentating, I then switched to PC, and I've been a what I describe as a competitive PC player since, where we had lots of scrims and pugs back on Gears 4 and Gears 5. You might have seen me on streams trying to compete against pros and stuff in scrims, wagers, tournaments, and the like. And yeah, many people know I'm a big proponent for crossplay on PC, and I guess that's me. And I'm a caster as well, for mainly the European region. I covered the pro circuit a lot on Gears 4, less so on Gears 5 internationally. But yeah, that's me. I won't ramble on.
All right. And do you play? So you're on PC. Do you use keyboard and mouse for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know some people who switched from console over to PC like using that gamepad or controller still. So. All right. Neon, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. You're able to hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Sorry for the video issues. I'm trying to get that wrapped up. But yeah, so obviously I don't have the lengthy credentials like Toby does, but I've definitely been playing Gears of War on the PC. I actually have the original Gears of War from 2008, I believe, or 2007, 2008, the original game, physical copy. So I started playing it back then, but you know, it kind of got abandoned shortly after. Then I started playing with Ultimate Edition, was that 15, 16 time frame, somewhere around there, but that game failed as well. But once Gears 4 came out, I was mainly on a console, but towards the end of the life of Gears 4, even though it's still around, that's when I really started playing a lot on PC. And with Gears 5, I've been playing PC exclusively. All my video content that I do on YouTube and things of that nature is through the PC version. I am not a huge fan of the current Gears 5 on console, although I've heard it's gotten better. I just refuse to play it, especially after witnessing anything over 120 frames and a solid experience is pretty fun. As a controller player, I can still get down with the alternative controls, but I much rather not play with a controller anymore. The game actually is starting to feel more natural as a keyboard and mouse player. So the last 2.5 years or so, I would say, a year and a half, 2 years, right around there. I actually should be more accurate, about a year and a half, 2 years, have been mainly keyboard and mouse exclusively, to where it's kind of I hate to use the word, but cringed if I even play on a controller these days. So
yeah, and so I play on console. I do have a PC that can play Gears, and I tried playing Gears PC with the Gears 4 time frame, but I kept crashing because I had the stupid NVIDIA issues. So I just went back to console, and I haven't even really thought about going back to PC again. Oh, looks like we got some cameras switching around here.
There we go. Yep.
So yeah, I haven't really even thought about going back to PC, but the new or the higher frame rates and stuff really seem enticing.
Yeah,
it's life-changing.
Yeah, and
it's honestly great to have when you're playing Gears when it went from 30 to 60, and it was really noticeable on a console. Just for those that are going to get the new consoles and things of that nature, just wait until you get to play at 120 frames constant. It's so much different.
And the load times, like I'm playing on a vanilla Gears or vanilla Xbox One, so the load times are ridiculous for me right now.
Oh no!
And then you guys talked about the switch from controller over to keyboard and mouse, and I guess that kind of goes into one of the advantages of PC players is the mouse, the accuracy of the mouse, and the input delay that there is on, or the lack of input delay on PC compared to the consoles. Did you play much PC gaming before switching gears over to PC?
Yeah, go
Toby,
ahead,
want to
Neil.
go? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, sure. So I actually really started getting into PC gaming back in the early 2000s, mainly with Diablo 2, and then into Counter-Strike 1.3, 1.4 before 1.5 came out. A lot of Team Fortress, and this is back in the early mid 2000s. And that's where I really got a lot of my shooter mentalities from. But then obviously when Halo 2, Halo 3 started making their way into the arena, I guess you could say in 2004 to 2007, that's when I started making the switch to console, mainly over the shooter games from PC to console. So for me, this experience was there. But the thing with Gears is that it just plays different than a first-person shooter. So it took me a few weeks of like alternating back and forth between a controller and a keyboard and mouse to get comfortable using the keyboard and mouse over a controller. So once you kind of break yourself of saying, like, I tell people all the time that if they're buying PCs now and they're playing Gears for the first time, whether 4 or 5, just stick with it. Don't get mad. Like, just go play the game and have fun with it. Go play Horde, go play campaign, and kind of like loosen up, kind of get your repetitions in with your hand-eye coordination, because it is a different experience. But I do think it's a superior experience. But I would argue that, and I don't know if it's Gears 5, because I've been tweeting a lot about Rogue Company recently, but in reality, I think I don't know if it's the aim assist, and I know that there's all kinds of issues with that, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I think what I'm going to get to is basically, I feel like those that play controller can still outplay PC players, especially if they have that good wall balancing mechanic and skills. And then if there is any aim assist on, I feel like they're at a slight advantage right there. So I think it's actually yeah, you have the elitists that can really aim on mouse and keyboard, but I don't really say that your advantage is your precision. I think your advantage is the frame rate, personally.
Yeah, Toby, do you have anything to add to that on the transition from controller over to mouse and keyboard?
Yeah, it's interesting actually you mentioned the transition itself and how, you went back and forth. For me, I actually was, I played years of Gears before I ever touched a PC. I came straight from console in that sense. But when I actually did switch to PC, I actually used COD 4 on Steam as really good practice for mouse and keyboard, and then also Gears at the same time. And I very quickly found myself learning faster and performing better on Gears, because I kind of knew how to play the game at a high level, and I kind of just relied on my experience and my smarts to kind of like compensate for my mechanics. And then I found my mechanics actually improved greatly then as a result. The thing is, like, Gears isn't as pinpoint as a precision shooter as, say, Call of Duty, Quake is an extreme example, CS. And so it really comes down to more so learning the keyboard, right? And that can really hinder a Gears player in many ways, because, we all know how important movement is in this game. WASD is just not as good as the left joystick, and it never will be. The advantages that you get just come purely from a mouse. The thing is as well, even on a very specific example of the keyboard as well, is the fact that you can roll super easily on a mouse and keyboard. If you go and play on Ultimate Edition on PC, you can't split up the cover key, right, or button, kind of like you can with classic Alt and control schemes on control. And you find very quickly, because of that high sense, that you are throwing yourself at walls and just rolling around. So, kind of a disadvantage in that sense. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. As soon as I started picking it up, I played GB singles before PC was taken off as an option, as a match challenge option on GB. And I just carried on playing competitively there, because I just really enjoy mouse and keyboard. It's great fun. Full disclaimer though, in terms of my opinion, mouse, keyboard versus controller, I do think it has an advantage. I've competed with both, and I feel like I'm pretty good on both at this point in time. There is definitely an advantage, like, for mouse and keyboard, but there is less of an advantage for mouse and keyboard than it would be the same comparison for Call of Duty Halo, any other game really. Gears, the cover system, the smarts, the decision making involved, pace of the game, how accuracy works in Gears. Really, it goes against mouse and keyboard in that sense. I think this is a very interesting debate, actually, mouse and keyboard versus controller, because of the new consoles and whatnot, right? The fact that we have actually got a developer open to the idea of crossplay in things like ranked and whatnot, and actually having that option altogether, I think it's a great thing. And there's a lot of benefits there. I won't stray there, but I will say I think mouse and keyboard and controller can work together in competitive settings. Just perhaps not where there's serious money on the line. Definitely not in a pro circuit. You'd have to really ramp up aim assist on a controller, I think, to compensate, to kind of get anything like, Fortnite kind of balance, where we all know there's a lot of complaints with aim assist on that game. So lots of considerations there.
Yeah, so it sounds like the big advantages of mouse and keyboard is the precision of the mouse, and I'll say the key bindings, the way that you can split up a lot of the commands on the keyboard. And then the advantage of the controller is that left thumbstick for movement purposes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can remap buttons very easily now on a controller, and with paddles and scuff controllers and whatnot.
Not quite to the level of PC, though.
Well, it depends. It's down to the game what actions you can actually split up. Ultimately, you don't need as many keys or buttons on a controller, because a joystick covers WASD, right, and a lot of things like that. The as I said, the main benefit is definitely the mouse. You can't, like, when I think about it, right, I actually switched to an Elite controller before I switched to PC. When I was competing still in UE, I was one of the first players to use an Elite controller on LAN. I noticed that no one else had one. I was really confused. Why aren't all other competitive players trying to optimize on this? It was very new, and I loved it. I still have my Elite controller to my right here plugged into my PC, which I use for many games now. And the thing is, I still have the level of separation for actions that I do with a keyboard. With a game, FPSs, Gears, etc., you don't actually have that many actions as you would in like League or whatever. I don't know if you've seen those crazy mice where I have like 17 side mouse buttons to try and reduce the strain on the left hand. That you don't really need that, honestly. With Gears, you're kind of more at the mercy of WASD and the huge reliance on that, always having to press those buttons to try and strafe and maneuver as best you can.
When I looked at switching over to PC gaming, one of the things I was looking at is, have you seen those like gaming keypads that has so you'd use the mouse on your right hand and the left hand has the thumbstick as well as a bunch of buttons, so you could basically get the best of both worlds. It seems like, have any of you guys tried those?
No.
Not me, no. I think interesting topic actually is that there are some like takes on the WASD, like FPS kind of like grips that don't have that joystick, which kind of show you typically see keyboards purpose built for FPSs actually have less buttons, not more. All right, they take away a lot and kind of make it more ergonomic, more like a controller. Jim Bob was actually in the stream earlier. He's played in tournaments with me on my team. He's basically a fully fledged teammate now. With hybrid, like, so controller and left hand, mouse and right hand, you have the best of both worlds. And on paper, I haven't really tested it to a great extent on hybrid. I've done a little bit of messing around with it, but on paper, it's probably the most optimal control scheme. And you'd be surprised, with one left hand on a controller, you don't have that access to that many buttons. You even less than a normal controller and or a keyboard then. So it's definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah. Let's see. So we talked a little bit about the keyboard and mouse aspect. The other big things that come up in any debate about the advantages of PC players is you've got the frame rate, the field of view, and the input delay. So I guess, do you guys want to hit on any of those? As someone who has played Gears on console forever, I don't really know what difference I would see with the field of view. I mean, I know they would make it so that I could see more or less, and things might seem smaller or bigger. The frames per second thing, I'm playing at 60 frames right now, and I'm like, I don't know why I need anything bigger, and I don't feel any input delay, but I know people who play on PC say that they can feel a significant input delay. The frame rate makes a big difference. You guys just want to hit on that for a little bit?
I'll take a little jab at it. I mean, I don't want to go into a lot of detail because you can go through so many pieces, and I'll leave that for Toby if you like. But for me, because I'm gonna stick it in all my perspective is going to be from a casual. And when I say the word casual, I'm talking like just a player that is just saying, okay, I'm playing console and I'm going to PC, not as it relates to ranked or anything like that. So the field of view is one of the big things that I enjoy. On the PC version, obviously you get the field of view slider, and I throw that sucker all the way up because I like to be able to see a lot more than what is a default is 80, I think, on PC, which is what console players have, 80 field of view. When you get it up to about a 90, I think it's 90 or 100, I can't remember off the top of my head, but when you throw it all the way up, you're able to see a lot more. And when I say a lot more, it's not like, oh, I can see the whole world, but you can see quite a bit more out to your sides. So it's very important for me to be able to have that ability. And I know a lot of games, Call of Duty, just announced that they're going to have it on consoles. I think it's all the way up to 120. So you're going to start seeing this happening on console games, whether it's PS4 or maybe Xbox One, or not just the newer consoles. So I think that's a good adjustment to have because, like yourself, you haven't had the ability and the luxury to say, well, what does this mean to me as a player? And you're going to notice it pretty much right out of the gate. In terms of I think you said frame rate was the other one, correct? You said frame rate. So as someone who, if you like, PC is really hard with the frame rate stuff because, you have to have the right equipment, the right, drivers, for example. You have to have all these very particular settings. I don't want to use the word fine tuned, but working properly. So for me, I can go all the way up to 200 frames per second. And if I start noticing on PC in particular that the frames are not consistent between 120 to 200, anything below 120 is like stuttering to me nowadays. So it's really hard for me to play games, whether it's on a console, and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to play on console just for fun, and then I'm going to make the switch back to PC to go get competitive. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get adjusted on the console version because of just how, I'm going to use the word, choppy things feel. And while this is not exactly relative to Gears, there is a little bit of a signal of something that I never thought about. Sports games, for example, there's all kinds of games that are increasing frame rate. And so one of the games that I've been playing a lot of recently was NBA 2K20, which came out over a year ago. And I've been playing that on the console. And that's 30 frames per second. And I got a little wise and I was like, let me go ahead and try this on the PC. And I'm like, it's just a sports game. It can't be that dramatic. But the frame rate of 120 plus compared to what a 30 or 60 frame rate in that game was even noticeable to me. So when you get the experience, it's really hard to just explain, but I would use the word, it's kind of jittery, choppy. It's not as responsive when it's at a lower frame rate. And so when you're a casual player, and I don't want to use the word casual, but I'm using that because it's not like you're going to go play versus ranked multiplayer every single game. There's a lot of people that don't do that, and they may not care. But if you do, you're going to notice the big change, and it's not going to be as jittery or choppy, and that's the word that I'm going to use for it.
Yeah, I remember
standard.
I played at 30 frames per second, and like back in the 360 or early Xbox One stuff, and I had friends playing on PC saying like, "Oh my God, 60 frames per second is so much better. How can you play at 30?" And thinking, all right, it's not that much different. But if I go back to 30 now, it's like night and day, and it hurts my eyes. Is it the same going from like 60 to 120?
To me, it's the same. I played like, okay, if I was to play another game that's Gears of War related, I can't play Gears of War 3 anymore. But I've been playing a little bit of Gears of War Judgment through the backwards compatibility on the Xbox One, and I still think it's 30 frames per second.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, every movement is like just god awful. Like, how am I playing this right now? And even with game mode enabled on my TV, I know that you've had issues with that in the past. I believe reading about that on one of your TVs. Like, you have to enable settings on the TV to make it appear more smoothly. And I'm like, I can't go back to 30 frames. Like what is being done to in terms of like future consoles and what Xbox or Microsoft is doing, the fact that some people are going to be able to go play these older games potentially at 60 frames per second, the older games, that will like show you just how big of a jump that was for that game. And then if you go play like Gears of War PC, the original one, compared to what it is in 30 frames to 60 frames, it's a completely different experience on the PC settings. So it's a big jump, and it will be another big jump when you go from 60 to 120.
Yeah.
Yeah, Toby, go ahead.
I'd love to chime in on this on these topics. So I think probably what you felt there, Neon, on Judgment in particular with backwards compat is the actual input lag itself. Like the input lag for me on backwards compat is even worse than it would be originally because of how it works, right? So on 30 FPS on that on top, we know that FPS has a huge impact on input lag, a massive impact. It's probably one of the main components that play into it. And that's kind of like a recipe for disaster if you're trying to avoid input lag. The irony or the funny thing with FPS and input lag is kind of you don't notice how different it is until you actually try it. When I was competing back on Gears 1, Gears 2 on 30 FPS on 360, I didn't know that it felt bad. It didn't feel bad to me because I hadn't been exposed to anything different. I'm not sure what input lag it was back then, kind of like actual measurements, but can't imagine it's too different to kind of what we're experiencing right now on consoles with 60 FPS, maybe like a bit more. The thing with input lag in particular is for me, it's one of the biggest advantages PC have, and it kind of goes under the radar a lot because, again, people don't know what it is and how it works, right? If you don't experience it, this isn't laggy in my hands. The console's fine. I don't know what you're talking about. What's input lag? When you actually experience it, then it's night and day. Like one of the main reasons that I to this day have not returned to console, probably the main reason in all honesty, is actually the input lag. I just can't stand it. My eyes can handle the lowering of frame rate. I kind of get used to 60 frames really quickly if I stay on console for a little bit on a different game. But the input lag on Gears in particular, the graphics are so good. I'm assuming TC have really focused on trying to build a visually appealing game that they've really pushed the console to the max as they used to with their awesome graphics, and input lag has perhaps taken a bit of a hit there on that metric. And the thing for me is I would rather play controller on PC than I would mouse and keyboard on console, even though I prefer these days mouse and keyboard on Gears and have fun. It's just so uncomfortable, and it does have a big effect on your performance as well as a player. If you're worrying about field of view and FPS when it comes to things like reaction time, don't, because input lag will have a much bigger effect because you can't bridge the gap of input lag oftentimes with your own reactions unless you're compensating and trying to predict in advance. As soon as you input an action, you're waiting on a treadmill, if you will, for that to actually happen on the game. Think of it that way. So yeah, when we talk about advantages, disadvantages, input lag is the main one for me. That and mouse and keyboard are in their own categories, in my opinion. The good thing for us though, same with FPS, is Series X and Series S, like the input lag is going to come right down. The frame rate's been doubled as well, which also reduces the input lag a lot. And then just the general specs of the Series S and X, they're literally PCs, like they're average PCs. I'm pretty, and Terry would say this right now. I think his laptop and I think his PC are not as good.
90 or 60 frames.
Exactly.
It's not as good.
It's not as good, right?
More expensive, and it's more expensive.
Exactly.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
thanks. I was going to say, right, that this is the issue of PC advantage over console. Hopefully, in my opinion, the new consoles kind of dies down massively because of the push of crossplay and how powerful these consoles are at the price point. Like they really are really, really powerful machines. And the debate between PC players about you play on 240 frames and I play on 60, that's unfair. It doesn't happen. It just does not happen. One of the interesting things I've noticed with COD, right? Now that COD esports has gone crossplay, Pro League is literally PC plus controller. You can't even use a console. Everyone has to be on PC for the Pro League. A lot of casters, a lot of players when they've made their YouTube videos discussing this change and what they think will happen, a lot of them have said, "Oh, surely they'll cap PCs, or they'll cap the frame rates, or they'll cap this, they'll cap that to keep it in line with consoles." I know, like, why would that be the case? It comes back to how you say, Neon, about FOV is kind of like a comfort thing, right? You don't cap like a whole population just for the sake of it. It's just it's kind of I get it with mouse and keyboard because that is huge, right? Mouse keyboard is a controller, right? Really fundamentally different. But with things like frames and whatnot, they're a lot less minor issues, and you're then having to look at the PC esports and think, oh, have they been capping frame rates? Have they been limiting the machines players can play on? No, they haven't. Even in like the biggest esports, if that was you kind of follow suit, in my opinion, with these proven games, massive games, PC esports and whatnot. Fortnite, for example, they've got controllers, they got crossplay. They don't limit PC players in qualifications for the Fortnite World Championships for millions, do they? And I think that goes to show it doesn't need to happen. You don't need to cap things. I really like the idea of player choice, but at somewhere on this, this line of decision making, you kind of have to go with the pros and the cons, or versus the cons. And I think there's so many pros for crossplay. And then there's the field of view topic as well. I can go into that into great detail, but I won't ramble for too long.
It just goes. I just want to add that it goes back to what you were saying, though. It's like the margins of people, and I'm going to use the word. I'm going to use completely different terminology than you. I just see a lot of people bickering and complaining, like, "Oh, I'm on a console, you're on a PC, you should slay me all day long." But when these new consoles come out in just about a month's time, and everybody can start getting their hands on them, that gap, like you said, is going to start narrowing, and you're going to start seeing a lot of people that just don't understand or whatever. I think that that argument is going to start dying off. It's like, for example, I'll ask you what your thoughts are, because as someone that has a PC, right, and I can go play plenty of frames per second, does it entice you to say, hey, I need to go get this new console, even though I have a PC? But I think I'll let you ask that first, or answer that first, because that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like, would you want to buy the new console just to buy it, just to go play competitive games, or would you still stick on your PC?
You asking me? I mean,
yeah,
for me,
directly,
yeah,
because you have the PC experience.
Sure. I mean, for me personally, I can confirm I've actually bought a Series X. I've pre-ordered one because I love Gears. I love a lot of console games. I actually want to try it out, see what it's like, and I'll definitely enjoy playing on it. Like my PC specs wise is more powerful. For reference, like full disclosure, my PC cost like around $2,000 when it was new. I really went all in on the build. I really wanted to maximize my frames. I wanted everything PC would offer. And I'm really competitive as well. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, right? It's not a casual perspective on PC by any stretch of the imagination. But the Series X is a really good machine on paper. I think the Gears team is aiming for 4K 120 FPS. So they've blown out the water. I'm not sure. I'm assuming my PC can hit 4K 120, but who knows? Like, optimization on the console is incredible.
For the price point, for what they're doing,
for the price point, yeah.
Price point, because my computer 2,000 plus or so, right around there, is probably around yours. I mean, I'm at 1080p and I'm getting around 200 frames per second, give or take. The fact that these individuals are going to be able to buy a console for like what, 1/5, 1/4 the cost, and get this type of performance, it's super impressive. Like, it's almost a no-brainer to not get the console if you're a legitimate person that was like, you know what, I don't want to play PC, but I want to have the best of the best. Like that, those new consoles are really going to knock it out of the park, and it's going to change so many of people's opinions. So it's just, I was curious because like me, I'm on the fence. Like, I don't have to have the new console right away. I just want it, but I would like to have it. So just kind of go back and play games like Gears or other Fortnite, for example, and just be like, okay, here's how this plays now compared to what it does on PC. So for someone like BChaps, I'm kind of curious. You said, I think you've said it kind of publicly on Twitter a few times, like you don't really feel the need to upgrade per se, but where's your logic on it now, or has it changed over time at all? That's just a personal question, I guess.
So yeah, I got the Xbox One like right when it launched, and I'm still using that. I've had no issues with it, and I don't really feel a need to upgrade right now because there's no next gen games that I really want to play. But then I look at it from the perspective of, okay, one, I guess there are a bunch of benefits with the higher frames per second and the better load times. And then I know there's going to be next gen stuff that I'm going to want to play, and the Xbox One is going to get phased out. I had a really great experience with my Xbox One, and I got that day one. So why don't I just upgrade to the X? And the sooner I upgrade, the sooner I can use it, and the more bang for my buck that I get. So I actually am. I haven't ordered one. I am leaning towards getting the Series X shortly after launch.
Good. I mean, there's just so many things, like the speed, the load times, and things like that. Just everything that they're putting out is like, wow. I mean, some of them are actually beating out PC SSDs. So it's just kind of crazy. Just not even just like the actual gameplay itself, just like the quality of life that you're gonna get. So I was just curious on your thoughts, because you've been pretty talkative about that over the last several weeks.
So I think one thing with these new consoles coming out is they're in Gears, ever since like Gears 4, basically, there's been the really big discussion about crossplay, and should it be forced crossplay? Should people be able to opt out for it? And I don't think that discussion's really worth having for right now, but once the new consoles come out, like they're not going to do anything before the new consoles come out. But once the new consoles come out, and they are super powerful, they discussed on the developer stream last night that they aren't completely opposed to adding a field of view slider for consoles. If people are okay with taking a potential slight performance hit. Do you see any reason that once the new consoles come out, that cross-play should not be forced?
It's a really good question. My opinion on the matter is that the new if we're keeping the same exact cross-play system that we have platform-wise, it's not input-based, it's platform-based, you would have to put Series X and Series S as PCs in the game, because they are literally like neck and neck with PCs and so far in front of the current gen consoles that you'd have to do that if you're trying to balance it on competitive integrity. Like that, you'd have to call it a PC.
I would agree with that.
So both on paper, both performance, that we know that how it's going to perform, but input lag, even regardless of whether FOV is FOV sliders are included. I'll perhaps go into that in a little bit of detail soon. Even without that, it's so far away, the X and the Series S from current gen consoles, that it would be ridiculously unfair to those who turn off crossplay, who are on original consoles, but then still play in Series X and S, because it's kind of like jumping through the gap that shouldn't exist. And so with that in mind, it begs the question: should we just do input device-based matchmaking now? My opinion is yes. A lot of my friends, my teammates, don't like that idea because they play on mouse and keyboard. Everyone knows it's the smaller community. It's not tiny, it's not dead, etc., as some might say, but it still is small. And matchmaking times have been a big issue for Gears players since Gears 3, the end of Gears 3, pretty much, or when Gears 3 started dying down population-wise. I think a lot of that is due to matchmaking parameters, but also it is the size of the game. Crossplay, I think, would really help us population-wise on that front. And people complain about matchmaking times are, they should take note of the advantages of crossplay for sure. I guess FOV-wise, as you were alluding to, right? FOV for me is the most confusing debate and argument that I have, because it really is in its own category of how minor it actually is in terms of my opinion and the opinions of lots of competitive players in terms of how it impacts this game. If we were arguing about CS or COD, where the person who sees the other person first kind of wins oftentimes, or he who shoots first, he who reacts first wins, we'd be having a different discussion. But the fact is, Gears of War, typically, when you see your opponent first in your field of view at distance, can't really do much with that. You can't just instant kill them. You can't just teleport to them. You can't. The time to kill is too high. And then then it comes to the third person aspect, right? Remember, this game has a much larger field of view than FPSs do. I think you get a fisheye effect if you try to get the same level of field of view in a first person camera as you do in Gears of War, which means inevitably law of diminishing returns, right? 80 FOV on third person can see way more than the default of an FPS as they bump up their camera or their field of view. And as you go higher and higher and be able to see more in your peripheral vision, the less it actually gives you a benefit. The less you actually start seeing the map. I've set up loads of screenshots, if you will, to try and show people when I'm talking to them about this in Gears that you can take cover on a certain part of the map. You can aim your camera down like the mid lane of the map, and you can almost see the entire width of the map just on 80 FOV. And then I ask, okay, so if we bump it to 100, typically what you can see is the water on the side of gridlock or dry dock. And I ask, what advantage is that at this point? And that isn't even considering the fact that we're always moving our camera in Gears as well. It's not just a field of view you see. It's kind of like the whole image that you get as you dynamically move your camera. It's FOV, as Centrix just mentioned in the chat, it's much more about comfort to me, and to a lot of players who have actually experienced the ability to change the FOV on Gears in third person. There are certain advantages to it. It's not null and void for sure of a discussion, but the idea of perhaps in a world where field of view could be the only difference between PC and console, and kind of trying to use that as an argument to not compete or to block out the ability to play comp or ranked, it's so far gone from the important discussion. There's not an argument there for me, because it's just so minor, and it would be such a disservice in that instance if you were to just use field of view as a complete con and huge negative or argument as to why we can't increase inclusion and stuff in our community.
You would say with these new consoles coming out, you would say crossplay, if it exists, it should be input based, right?
Ideally, yeah. That in an ideal world, I think it would be input based. I'm hoping that the pure mouse and keyboard community would pick up through Steam, Game Pass, etc. is such an awesome offer these days. We could have a big influx of PC players, but I think long term it might actually help us, as we get to a more sophisticated system for crossplay and whatnot. Believe it or not, a lot of mouse and keyboard players these days don't want to play against controller players because of concerns of aim assist and whatnot, and the advantages that might provide on many games. So whether that's true on Gears doesn't really matter to a lot of endemic PC players. They'll come on this game, they'll see it's third person, and they might try and draw comparisons to Fortnite. Maybe Roco, i.e. Rogue Company, has a lot of aim assist as well. These things have to be considered. The last point on FOV as well, I have to mention. A lot of the top players in the PC comp community, we don't ramp our FOV up to 100. I play on 80 now. I used to play on 85 to 90, kind of like a comfort thing, but now I've actually followed in another player's footsteps, Aurora Symphony. He's my teammate as well. He's a popular streamer. He plays on 80 out of choice. He plays absolute default FOV, and there are advantages to having lower FOV. One in Gears specifically, is actually gauging the distance from your shotgun barrel to your opponent more accurately, and knowing the chunk range as a result. You'd be very, very surprised how many people think the game is massively broken with the gib distance and consistency, when maybe half or more of their examples of the clips that they post are actually them misjudging the distance of the gib, how close they are to the opponent, etc. There's a lot of player error there, and it's very, very important, as we know, of winning your 1v1s in this game, rather than thinking you can just go and sit in a corner and use field of view to try and pan out and see player enemies first to try and call out to your teammates. So yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that, like, this is something I was going to say earlier, but you touched on it perfectly right here, is that the game does play different when you have your field of view, especially with Nasher play. It takes a while to get used to that distance of, okay, are you in chunk range or not? And I don't think those that play console and make that argument they don't know that until they actually experience it, because then that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of the 80s, 86s, 87s, or whatever it is these days, and you're like, okay, why did I not one shot him? But I would also add that as like a PC player, I don't know exactly what the true count of people playing this game are anymore, but the franchise needs as many people playing as possible at any given time. Just, it doesn't matter if it's input based or just like, you know what, force it. I would like to see it, because as someone that lives in Central America, I don't really have an issue with match times unless it's late at night, and then I'm like, okay, I'll just go play free for all at that point. But I definitely think that the game, given the last year or so over the franchise, how much having a forced crossplay could just be beneficial. And then, like you mentioned, you got Steam, you got the Game Pass people, then you got those that have actually purchased the game. And then going back to the discussion of the PC versus console, there's a lot of people that I personally know that don't have a $2,000 rig. They have maybe $1,000 computer or a $500 to $700 computer or laptop, and they're playing these games just to get a 60 to 90, maybe 100 frames per second. But when these new consoles come out, they're at a disadvantage then, slightly, because if you want to talk frame rate and how that all works. So I think I just feel like the game just needs a spark, and the spark would be just to force the crossplay. And then once the game gets back to a high population back like it was in the day, and of course I could be completely off. I'm talking just general gameplay, not rank specific to top tier players. I'm just talking about casual players that want to play the game. I don't think their experience will be ruined by those playing PC or not, as long as there's a lot of players. I think they're overall going to be happy. They'll play the game regardless.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards just have forced crossplay. I believe my settings right now, so I play on console, so I have the option to turn off crossplay, and I don't think I have turned that off. I think I still have it enabled. Especially once these new consoles come out, like you said, the better input delay, the higher frames per second, maybe they'll have field of view. The only thing I could really see them doing crossplay wise is changing it to input based. But even that, I don't think that's really necessary. If you want to get the best performance, like if keyboard and mouse really is the best, if you want the best performance, switch to that. Otherwise, play on controller and do the best that you can with that. It's all about, like, me, I prefer controller. If I switch to keyboard and mouse, I'm not going to be as good. So it's really about what you personally like. And if you really want to squeeze that top performance out, go with whichever one you think you can do best with. I think crossplay should be forced, and it shouldn't even be a question anymore.
And you can plug in a mouse and keyboard into your Series S or Series X,
yeah,
you know, or Xbox One.
You can do it right
console,
now,
right?
Yeah.
You do it right now.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's been a myth of recent, right, or in the past couple of years, is that you just see a PC icon, you just assume, they're going to be a mouse and keyboard likely, or against 5 PC players, we're just going to get lasered by mice or something, you know. Well, people actually say and believe that.
It's like playing. I go play Call of Duty Warzone, and I'll have my friends that are playing on PS4, and obviously I'm playing on PC, and then I'll have one person playing on Xbox, and they're I don't ever. And I know it's slightly the same. You know, they're not ever going to be like, hey man, I'm not going to play with you because you're on PC. So that means I'm going to be matched up with a bunch of PC players. It's kind of like almost everybody, in my opinion, and when I say everybody, I mean games are starting to move that way. I see some discussion about Halo, MCC in particular. You know, I've said it. I was like, I really don't want to play Halo right now because I don't want to go back and play it on the controller on my Xbox when I can go play it on my PC, but I don't have the ability to cross play at all right now. So there, you know, what are your thoughts on that, Toby, in particular? I mean, like Halo, for example, that's a Microsoft's top tier title. You know, do you think that crossplay in that game should be forced or input based still, or because it's got a large population, but you're starting to finally see it on PC for the first time, truly?
Yeah, I mean, Halo's an interesting one because I think very recently MCC has gone input-based matchmaking. I think
soon.
I think soon.
It's an insider right now. It's an insider right now.
Yeah, and the irony in this is I know probably why that's happened. It's because of mouse players, the endemic PC players don't want to play against controllers because of concerns of aim assist and whatnot. You'll find in all the tournaments that happen in MCC, crossplay PC on Halo 3 and whatnot, all the top teams were just controller players. They were the same exact pros, just dominating. And you find that the player population of Halo MCC on Steam and on Twitch in terms of viewership sunk all the way down after a huge release, just because all the PC, basically the entire PC platform, it seemed like, just disappeared. And the only players remaining were endemic console players, like say like myself, for example, starting PC, back on Gears 4. You only had them left playing the game. But the thing is, Halo esports itself, now I'm pretty sure across the board and will continue to be, is crossplay. And mouse and keyboard allowed. It's not even restricted, just controller only. Maybe that's in part because they kind of developed the MCC and knew it was going to try and have a controller bias with how the game works in terms of how difficult mouse is to aim on that game, or how effective the aim assist is on controller. But that kind of goes to show Microsoft's plans and openness to inclusion, right? Microsoft are a really good company generally across the board, not just in games, when it comes to inclusivity and whatnot. And we know how great Gears 4 and Gears 5 in particular is at that too, in terms of accessibility. And so I guess, yeah, if Halo can do it, then I think Gears probably can as well. The issue for me in terms of forcing everything and if they try to go on a very big attempt like Fortnite, Apex, and COD or Halo to balance the two input devices, then I think you may just end up alienating one side. We know how many people complain about aim assist with a controller. I felt it. I could, just playing on mouse and keyboard, I could tell aim assist changed in many ways from Gears 4 to Gears 5 or from older games. I think you have to be very careful in terms of how you address trying to balance mouse and keyboard with controller in this game, given how important movement is, and trying actually to dodge shots it could really alienate a lot of players.
Yeah, as someone who plays with a controller, I always, and like on Reddit and the forums, most people seem to be that controller player who are really opposed to playing with PC people. It's not often that I hear the PC side saying we don't want to play against controllers because they have aim assist.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. It is a real thing. Yeah.
But
I want to go. I want to touch on something though. I'm sorry. In chat, Vikings fan guy. I can't find his message now all of a sudden, but he said that he hasn't seen many people on console play with keyboard and mouse, and I would say that that's actually a very true statement. But there are I know a few people that have bought the Razer turret, and I only know one person's hands-on experience. My best friend lives right down the street from me. He actually got slightly better on the console using the Razer turret. And then he was like, okay, now I'm going to go and build a PC, or bought a PC, and now he's just playing everything on keyboard and mouse on the PC. So I think it's a good introductory level to say, okay, all right, I'm playing on my console right now. I want to kind of know about the keyboard and mouse experience. And then you start playing Gears, you get used to it, and you're just, sitting down and you're playing however. I would say that that's a very good point, that a lot of those people that are on console probably have never hooked up a keyboard and mouse except just to type in chat.
I have a keyboard hooked up to my Xbox right over there, and that's only so I can type in chat.
Yeah, but I would encourage people to at least give it a shot. I don't know how it plays. I personally haven't done it. I should try it, but give it a try. If you got a keyboard and mouse and you have the setup to try it, give it a shot and just see how it goes. I mean, I'm curious to just hear what people would even remotely think about it on a console, on an Xbox One or an Xbox One X.
Yeah. So this whole this whole discussion on crossplay, like, one of the biggest reasons that this is an issue is because of the player population, right? And that's one of the really big issues that we have with the PC right now, is there's people on console who turn off crossplay, and then the PC population apparently isn't large enough to support the player base and give good matchmaking times. So how much do you guys see that? And do you ever switch back to console and find matches right away?
So I can't speak to too much detail on this in terms of Europe anymore, at least with with modes like King of the Hill and stuff, because I only typically most of my games I typically just stack with 5 friends these days, and I've kind of that's kind of been like my friendship group, if you will. And I play my team is all American, and I typically get them to host because of historically all the way back on Gears 4, I had serious issues trying to find a game on Europe, and that was with console as well. I always tell the story of I don't know if you remember when Diamond 5 came out on Gears. I think it was Diamond Master on Gears 4. Sorry. I was trying to race to try and be the first person in the world to get Diamond Master first in all playlists. I did most of it on PC, but then I found out I couldn't find games. I was struggling really hard to find games on Guardian and I think Arms Race. So what I did, I said, okay, I'm gonna stop trying to fight this system, even though I'm in a race right now to try and do this and finish off those last 2 modes. I switched to console. At peak time, I searched for Guardian and Arms Race. Peak time on console, couldn't find a game in 60 minutes on either playlist. But then I joined my teammates, my American buddies game. He hosted game within 20 seconds. Like what does that tell you? It means that's not. Yes, EU has a lot less players, evidently, and there's a population issue. But surely at some point after the 60 minutes, the matchmaking parameters should be opened up and I'll be actually able to find the same games, you know? Surely. I was playing with under 100 ping. I wasn't on 1,000 ping or any dramatic number where you'd, kind of like ban me from playing. But those are the kind of considerations when we think about crossplay and player population. Matchmaking parameters can be a huge issue, but happy to report, though, FFA... I couldn't find a game on PC actually when that first came out in ranked in Europe, but in recent times, peak time for me, I actually find games within 2 minutes on FFA. 2 minutes, doesn't matter what rank I was, both at bronze or higher rank, find games instantly. And even as a 5 stack now, with 4 other PC players, American host, yes, we find games within 3 minutes on King of the Hill and TDM. Which is really good. TC have blown out the water of actually fixing that issue. And now it seems like everyone can actually play together, and the player population issues do not seem as much of an issue as they once did.
Yeah, I would say the same. Although I'm not in EU, so I can't relate to that. It's just I have not played ranked in probably a couple weeks now. Once I got Masters and Free for All, I was done with it. I was like, okay, I'm good. But I will say, if I go play matches. About 2-3 weeks ago is probably when I stopped playing ranked for the Masters. Okay, I'm good. I'm done. I'll just say that it was more difficult at the time, and there's obviously been changes over time to the you can only play 1 rank higher than you, 1 rank lower than you. That's when it was really complicated and difficult for me. But as people have played more and more and more, and they've ranked up, I guess it became fairly easy. The only issues in America that I'm seeing is late time night games, and that's it. And that's usually when I'm on. I'm usually on around that midnight, 11 to 2 o'clock in the morning time frame. So I don't really see the issues, and I hate the fact that EU even had those issues. But if you go back to just forcing crossplay and allowing everybody to play together, you're gonna have some of those population issues resolved. So
yeah. See, so I'm looking at some notes here, and so population was one of the things I listed as an issue for PC, but I guess it sounds like it's really not that much of an issue anymore.
I mean, as I mentioned, it's definitely the smaller community. A lot of console players turn off crossplay, but we still find games pretty easily at peak time. In recent times, I stack with my 5 PC stacks, teammates. We typically find a lot of PC players when we play. They're mostly PC players. Very often we play against another 5 and PC stack on King. It's certainly not dead by a stretch of the imagination. I don't. Is it? It is an issue, I guess. But I really just try to persuade people about the other considerations when it comes to player population on matchmaking times. Think about matchmaking factors. Think about how many players we have on the game. Think about how many modes are ranked and whether they're actually should be in ranked, whether they're suitable for literal ranked competitive play. I could debate ever on the integrity of TDM for ranked as much as I like it. Lots of issues when it comes to actually playing to win on that mode and playing as a team. Spawn trapping, things really do shake up dramatically. We had arms race, we had dodgeball before Gears 4. We've had so many playlists in the past that when you actually take Gears and look at, say, games like Siege, League, Overwatch, Counter-Strike, they're massive games, but they even have less playlists than us. So you can imagine how sparsely our players are separated from each other, and throw the matchmaking system on that as well, the ranking system where you limit the kind of players you can play against. There's no wonder why we've had very large matchmaking time issues in the past. We really need to actually focus on more inclusion to get over the bigger hurdles. I think if someone's going to play this game or try to play this game for the first time and find they search for 7 minutes and don't find a game, we could lose them forever. Okay, we probably lost way more players to actually matchmaking times than we have ever to, oh, I just got killed by someone. I think they're on mouse and keyboard. Oh, I just got killed by someone. He's probably on PC, even though I can't see whether he's got a symbol next to his name in the game. Like so much more of an issue is matchmaking times and those kind of things than and rank. How many ranked modes, how many modes we have than crossplay itself.
Yeah, I would almost say that the even bigger issue would be, or not bigger issue, but another issue is, sorry, the cameras keep switching around on me here. All right, another issue is the crashes that we've had on PC. And Gears 4 had NVIDIA crashes. I guess Gears 5 is it AMD that's crashing now? And there's a lot of people who their only way to play the game is on PC. They don't have a console. And now the game keeps crashing on them, freezing. They can't play the game. And it happens a few times. They're like, okay, I guess I'm just not going to play Gears.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember, I guess, or most of us perhaps, PC, if there's any PC players in Twitch chat, the NVIDIA driver crashing issue on Gears 4. That was quite damaging, actually, to the competitive PC community and the larger Discords. I can confirm it was a really bleak time, actually, because it was even putting off the most motivated hardcore fans of PC Gears from actually trying to play the game. When we're trying to set up a competitive 5v5 match, the odds of one of those players crashing and just destroying the game immediately was so high that we actually stopped playing. Even if 9 other people were committed that this will be the time that we could play. It was so common, the crashing issue. And it lasted so long as well, like over a year, maybe
I still
even
can't
reaching 2 years.
Gears 4. My game still crashes Gears 4, or my computer.
They never fixed it. I don't know if TC at that point or NVIDIA knew Gears 5 was coming out and they kind of like cut the losses or whatever and kind of just thought, okay, let's focus on Gears 5, let's make it the best thing we can. I'm assuming that's the case. Due to how bad, big of an issue it was and how difficult it was to fix. Maybe that's the case. But that was huge. And even now, actually, with Gears 5, we have had some frame rate issues. I think, at least on my end, on an NVIDIA graphics card, I'm okay with the newest driver. But for most of Gears 5, I've actually played on a at least a year-old driver, I want to say, because of a frame rate timing issues and some stuttering after 2 or 3 games. Some people have called it a memory leak. I think people have looked into that and not found that to be the case, but it's kind of like mimicking a lot of those kind of issues. Any PC players out there will kind of know what a memory leak can look like in a game. But yeah, to wrap up, right, it does seem like, yes, they're really good games. Gears on PC, like well optimized, they look great. Awesome settings to change. Really, great customizability as you'd expect from a good PC game. But we have had those really big performance issues at times where it's kind of unfortunate. With the game being on Steam now, that might be a route for a lot of these issues to be a bit. The game operates a little bit different platform than on the Windows Store.
So, in terms of the PC, graphic card issues, in terms of Gears 5, when the game first launched as an NVIDIA 2080 user, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible for me. But then after the first update or the rollback of drivers, like you mentioned, that's when things for me personally became okay. And then I think after about a month or two, that's when I started like the memory leak issue from November all the way up until about February. For me as a like personal user was almost damaging to the point to where I did not feel like I could even play the game. I was having to mess and tweak with like the cooling settings, my fans. I was doing everything I possibly could to just mess with settings to get it to work properly. And then eventually, I think after maybe somewhere in Operation 3 in March is when I stopped seeing all the memory leak issues. And what that feels like, if to try to compare, is like the game just became almost like unresponsive. My PC was like super like hot to the where my whole room felt like it was on fire. And I think that kind of goes back to after an hour and a half, performance degraded so bad to where it was just almost unplayable. But I haven't had those issues as of late, and I'm on the most recent and updated drivers ever since March. So just my experience to add to that.
Yeah, and I'd say right now there's some AMD people with AMD that are having issues with Gears 5. There's people like myself who still can't play Gears 4 on PC because it crashes. I don't even know what's going on with Ultimate Edition. I see complaints about Ultimate Edition on PC all the time with people trying to go back and play that, and it's just not working. It's really unfortunate that Gears is having all of these issues.
I would just say most games, I don't play on Steam. I actually bought Gears 5 on Steam to try to remedy the problems that I was having with the memory leak issues and the frame rates and all that back in the early part of the year. Greatest Journey actually was like, hey, go buy the game on Steam. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'll go do it. I bought it. I didn't notice it personally. Again, every situation is different, but I did not get any benefit of purchasing it. So I actually ended up refunding the game almost instantly. And this is with like Terry. I think Terry was the one who was like, here's the comparison of what it is to play this game on Gears 5 in particular on Steam versus playing it through the Windows Store. And I'm like, well, for me, it's different. I'm actually getting better quality out of the Windows Store randomly. But any other game like Gears Ultimate Edition, it's really bad. I just think that Microsoft really tried to get games, and this is just again opinion based, not factuals here, is that those games, they just try to get them out to appeal to other players, but they just didn't have a real game plan in place to make sure that they were supported, which is why you see Ultimate Edition. There's so many people right now on PC that are organizing to go play the old Gears of War, the original on PC, because they want to go play that retro game. They want people like myself, we want to play that, but you can't go play Ultimate Edition. If Ultimate Edition was working properly, I would have no issues playing that game like I would if it was on like it is on console. It works fine. So with what the coalition might be doing and what Microsoft is trying to do is potentially, hopefully, with this patch that they're working on, it'll be fixed on PC potentially, and then you might be seeing a lot of that. But the Windows Store, when it first came out in like 15 14 timeframe, that was the biggest waste of money I ever did when I bought Ultimate Edition, because I think I'd probably played 1 or 2 matches of ranked and then it was over, or player match, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what it is because it's been so long since I had the ability to do it.
Yeah. So let's see. Still no word from Terry. I guess it sounds like he's having some stuff come up. Maybe he'll be able to join us later. I know one of the topics I was hoping to discuss with him was on mods, but I think there's some mod discussion we can talk about between the three of us. The first one that always comes up, this kind of goes back to the crossplay thing, is cheaters. People having exploits and mods on PC and ruining the experience for people online. Have you guys seen that? I don't know if I've actually run into anyone online that I think is using any mods. So,
from my point of view, on Gears 4, I ran into hackers quite frequently, actually. There was 2, maybe 3 notorious hacking stacks, if you will, on PC, who would come across a number of times, and we would kind of challenge ourselves to beat 5 hardcore aimbotters in a game, We have won a number of times. I think we were like 50-50 with them. We were seeing them so often, and we were trying to actually win what seemed like an impossible battle. And so I've had a lot of experience, right, with hack. We're playing against hacks in this game, and I think I like to think that I kind of know, if I see a hack, it's, I have a good judgment as to what a hack is, or what a hack looks like. On Gears 5, since we've had easy anti-cheat, the same kind of software that's used on Fortnite and other games, I don't think, I can pretty confidently say I don't think I've come across a single hacker, which is a huge difference from Gears 4, where I used to come up against them a lot, to now where it seems like they don't even exist. I don't think I've even seen clips online on Twitter or anything of someone aimbotting and someone even actually spectating them. Like, that's how rare it is. Like, if I haven't seen anything like that on Twitter, when I surf Twitter all day long, and I follow like esports pros and whatnot, a lot of them play on PC. You'd expect, right, someone to actually find a clip somewhere and post it online. But I don't think I've ever seen a single one. I'm not saying hackers don't exist. I'm sure they do, but perhaps they're so rare that it almost seems like a non-issue at this point in time. Yeah. I get the concern with when it comes to comp and whatnot, but with competitive, like when it not ranked, I mean like really high prize pool stakes. But at that point, I would also, when you get to esports level and competitive level, then evidence can actually, really help you out when it comes to, if someone actually tries to hack in a competitive environment, they won't last long for that reason. But yeah, I guess that's kind of it for me on hacking. I genuinely believe it's almost a non-issue. Yes, it's really, really good that consoles have had a closed ecosystem where they can be confident that no one's really hacking. It has happened in the past, 360 with modded lobbies and whatnot. Like, consoles aren't immune by any stretch, but yeah, I get it. The consoles have a nice benefit there of being really hard to hack and cheat on. But pros and cons again. It comes back to the debate of crossplay PC advantage and whatnot on crossplay. Hacking seems like a non-issue for me at this point. That I think is not that huge of a. It shouldn't be on a really major con list, if you will, when someone's trying to weigh up whether PCs should be allowed in more games or whatnot.
Yeah, agreed. I would second that. And just to add a little bit to that is, as a PC player, you're not going to find a lot of them, because the easy anti-cheat system is, I would say, pretty dang good. Not only that, like, there are games on PC that have crossplay, such as Warzone. They're always having issues with like people cheating and having to get banned with those games that are free to play. So perhaps the fact that, I don't know how to word this, but yes, technically you're not playing a free to play game with Gears 5, and there is a much lower population. Maybe that's why it's not so rampant. But I would also chalk it up to the fact that there's easy anti-cheat, whereas Call of Duty has something that it goes in ban waves, where they have to detect it, and then they'll purge every account, and then they can go back and remake it. It's a free-to-play game. So there are softwares out there that allow you to just enable cheats fairly quickly and easily. But I have not seen any of that to the point to where someone could say, yeah, I really want to go enable this and go play ranked in Gears 5 or whatever it may be, the case may have you, and enable that. I just don't think it's really out there right now.
Yeah. Then the other part of mods is like fun mods, the opposite of cheating, but mods that make the game better. And with Gears being a console first game and then moving over to PC, it's something that doesn't seem like it was really a priority for the Coalition, which, I mean, it makes sense. But a lot of PC games have mod support, and they have community created stuff, and there's a whole new community that gets generated around user created content and all these really cool things that you can do. Do you think it's something that the Coalition should look in investing in? Not Gears 5 probably, but like Gears 6, do you think that they should have some sort of infrastructure to help user created content?
No?
Are you there? I think this is a kind of a big topic. So is there anything you want to like specifically touch on?
So, all right, there's the obvious stuff like weapon skins, maps, characters. You have Gears 1 PC, people created Horde mode for Gears 1 PC. Yep. I think it was only like Boomers and Wretches or it was Beast mode. It was Beast Mode. You could only play as Boomers and Wretches, I think, but it's like, hey, that's some cool content. It was user created stuff. And with all of these tools becoming like the Unreal Engine is much more readily available now. You have all these people who are interested in game design. They can make some really cool stuff. I've seen some really cool fan made maps in the Unreal Engine for Gears, and it'd be really interesting to give the players the tools in order to create that stuff on PC. And yeah, maybe it's not going to make its way into matchmaking and be available for everybody, but for others who are on PC and willing to mod the game, they can play private lobbies and try out some really cool stuff.
So I'll go first. I'll have a few thoughts on this. Obviously, there's no reason not to enable something of the sort. You know, it increases community engagement. People can get hyped or excited about something that someone made. I think TC actually really kind of had that thought with the map builder and the custom tile builder for Escape, but ultimately it's not there. But I will say those that are on PC and the Gears PC Discord, they are playing Gears 1 and they're playing custom made maps that are not Epic Games maps that were made, and they're actually pretty dang good. I personally haven't had experience playing on them because I haven't had enough time to go play with them when they're setting up these lobbies, but doing something like that is fun. You're revisiting the game in a new way. And then of course you're talking about there's all kinds of stuff out on PC for those that are not aware. You have like Gears of War 3 PC out there, where people are able to play Gears 3 on PC, and it's like, look at what people are actually making. They're spawning in with some crazy like all tickers or some kind of all crazy unique experience, and it's just an enjoyable experience. So Halo takes advantage of its sandbox, and Gears should as well.
Yeah, and I think the PC Discord with the Gears 1 community nights and being able to play on fan-made maps, the build of Gears 3 that's playable now on PC that has cut content as well as people have made their own fan maps for it, and they can go in and really customize stuff and make some really cool experiences. Just like you said, I haven't played it either, but I've seen clips of it and I've seen people talking about it on the Gears PC Discord, and it seems like it's a really big opportunity. But then again, those are from games that were developed further back. Gears 3 was developed for console. Gears 1 PC was quite a while back, and it was easier to mod that type of stuff. It wasn't as closed of a file system, I guess. And
I'll add something to this, since I was referencing an older game of Gears. If I was to come back and go into Gears 5, there are things that you can do if you know what you're doing, to enable certain features that are not to the public right now. You can spectator modes and horde or escape and things like that. You can do all kinds of stuff, but TC doesn't allow that stuff. And I don't know why they don't allow it. I think that would be fun to watch, honestly and personally. Not only that, I do believe they really gave an attempt, but I think with the community created content, and I don't understand why they don't do this. What's that mode in Halo, the wannabe soccer football mode? That came out, Griffball became so popular where there's tournaments at the time, and there might still be, to where it was just a unique, simple idea that the community created, and it blew up into something popular. Right now we're at the mercy of allowing the coalition to say, hey guys, here's what we're working on, you do it, or you go play it. Whereas I remember a couple streams back with Michael Shannon, and I asked him, I was like, well, is there any chance that, that we could get the map builder out there, just release it as it is, whatever it might be, and allow people on PC or console, whatever the case might be, and just allow them the ability to go play their own unique experiences, whether it's multiplayer maps, Horde, Escape, whatever. But the response was, well, we don't necessarily want to do that because there could be glitches or bugs with the environment, and there might be some issues there. And I'm like, okay, I hear you, but let the community play with the settings and let them figure out how to fix that. I don't understand why there's limitations on it, and they spent a year, give or take, on creating these custom tiles that you only get to use a limited amount in a skate. You don't get any other use. So why not just put it to good use and allow the community to use it for fun and whatever they want to design with it? I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, it's they're drawing this line of if they put something out there, they want it to be polished. Um, and putting out
But
that,
is anything polished?
I know, and that's
You know what I
that's
mean?
the
Like,
kicker.
you can't even make that argument if you're them, because the game is not. I mean, it's better than it was, but there's still fundamental issues, across the board, or design issues, whatever. I just don't understand how you can limit something that you spent so much of your time on, to where you literally have openly stated, we're not going to make maps because we have the map builder, but then, things look too repetitive. They look the same. Oh, you don't have the quality of polishedness, or whatever the case may be. That just doesn't line up to me. There's people that would probably go ahead and make something like this on the PC side of things and optimize it better than they might be able to. I don't know that to be true, but give the community a chance to engage with each other. Because right now, I don't really feel like there is any of that.
Yeah.
It's just like, here's a clip, and I'm thankful that they're allowing some of this. Like, it's just, here's my game clip, go. But there's no custom-made experiences that the community has. There's so much stuff that's held back. It's just whatever. It bothers me a little bit, to be quite honest.
And not only that lack of mod support for the community to create stuff like that, but there's also, if you look at, I'll use Halo 3, and it's not mods, it's the custom settings in games to make the things like Griffball. That's nothing that people needed to mod to do. That's just settings that are available in the game for player health, player movement speed, what weapons you want to spawn with, what type of ammo. That's a whole different discussion. I made like a 20-something minute video discussing private match settings, but like I feel mod support, map builder, and private match options are three really big things that are missing right now.
Well, and I think I could be wrong with this. Maybe one of you two could fill in on this, but I know this piece is accurate, that none of those settings have ever been available in the Gears of War franchise. The only thing is pretty much like rotating spawns, or the weapons, for example, and a few other, like, now I think they've also actually added the weapon tuning as well, potentially. I could be wrong on that in private matches. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you would think that after 14 years of play, that these settings would be available before you even started getting into the modding community, where they can start doing whatever they want to do to customize the game. The game as it is just needs a little bit of a boost, and whatever you can give them all the tools that they can. Encourage that. They talk about, like, they want to promote the community on their Twitter and things of that nature. Here's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So, is there anything else you guys want to discuss around Gears and PC? I think that goes through most of the topics that I had listed here.
I mean, something I noted down earlier to perhaps mention is the idea of macroing on PC, and it kind of ties back into the hacking discussion. It's an interesting one, actually, macroing, because it can be very difficult, unlike actual legitimate hacking, to address. A lot of games might be able to detect that, like, fire rate is going up, like with modded controllers and whatnot, but a lot of games can't, and it can kind of be no different to a trigger finger. What if someone uses a macro to get their rate of fire up to a point where it would be a legal trigger finger, which wouldn't be detected? Is that unfair or something? It's definitely something to consider. I think from my experience, I think I have come across, like, macroed pistols, for example. There are some people in this community that literally just walk around with snubs, some good players, and don't use a Lancer yet, and they actually appear to have a very consistent rate of fire constantly. It really makes me, roll my eyes a little bit then at that point and think, maybe he is actually playing in a way that he knows he has, a macro pistol or whatever, where he's just, really jamming up the fire rate artificially. But I've not come across it too much. I think, again, it's not a major issue, but there is the complications and issues where, you can actually find that it's very hard to enforce. Even mouse software at this point in time actually can optimize for a lot of like macroing and whatnot, which causes issues if mouse developers, mainstream gaming companies just really like making it possible to macro stuff. It is a concern, I guess. Another thing to discuss on the macro aspect is actually wall bouncing and your keyboard. This is less of an issue, actually. I've seen some popular YouTubers and whatnot making videos about this, and even tutorials, which blows my mind. If you're a PC player and you don't want to, and you want to kind of protect and support the PC crowd, don't just rail on it and try and like teach people who might actually cheat how to cheat, if you will call it cheating. Don't teach people that. That kind of blew my mind a little bit. That people would do that, but the concern about macro keyboarding or on a keyboard or macro controller, maybe even with wall bouncing, is that you can somehow just press a button and just zoom down a wall and it gives you ungodly speed. It's not that much of a concern. It's never been the case in a game where legitimate spamming, hyper bouncing has ever been effective at a high level, whether that's on Gears 4, Gears 5, Gears 3. You literally you make yourself, your movement wise, so predictable that someone can literally just hard aim a position and you just walk into their reticle and you get taken down very easily. Even with I know mouse, we come back to the mouse subject very quickly actually. The concern of mouse sensitivity for wall bounce speed was a big one early on. Everyone thought, anyone who just hop on a mouse, anyone good, would just abuse that sense to wall bounce faster. Never came about. Like you never saw people just suddenly, you were never able to tell if someone's a mouse and keyboard from the movement. You would never be able to tell that. And it goes the same way with WSD disadvantages and all that. You never really tell that they can't move properly. If someone wants to macro, basically in closing, if someone wants to macro, spacebar or something to move as fast as they can, then go ahead. But it's not really giving you an advantage. It just looks flashy. It might look good on a montage on a wall or something. But typically spamming, pinballing between two very close walls or spamming on one wall down a corridor, it's not effective. And it really is just hyper bouncing, montage bouncing that doesn't work on high level players. It'll work on really new casual players who don't understand the game. It'll look flashy when you get clips, but that's as far as it goes. It's all show and no go for me.
Yeah, I would add that the macro pistol is almost a non-issue. If the player is not really familiar with macroing, I've seen it to where in private lobbies where people were testing the settings and the person that wasn't even actually macroing had a better recoil and was able to down the player easier than the one that was actually macroing. But the hyper zoom balancing and stuff like that, completely agreed. That's a non-issue. So what Toby is saying, for those that have concerns about like, oh, what about macros? It's literally not like the biggest of deals, in my opinion. Agreed as well. But I do want to go back to something I was saying, and I kind of got off topic, but I was there and just kind of lost my train of thought earlier. Is that in terms of the private game and the custom game lobby settings and things of that nature, TC has the ability to modify a lot of the movement speeds and the weapon damages and things of that sort. And all this is, guys, to put it for those that don't know, is literally just TC. And I'm probably making it sound a lot easier than what it is. So I'll keep that in mind. But basically, all they're doing is changing input values of certain things and mechanics inside the game. I would assume that they could probably implement something like that into custom games or private lobbies to where it's a slider. I could be wrong with that. I don't know, Toby, if you have thoughts on that, or if you know what I'm referring to. But for those that are on PC, you can kind of see what the exact discussion points that they sometimes talk about in the blogs and the what's ups about, like, here's how we're seeing the Nasher distance and the gib range and things of that sort. Like, all these settings could be potentially customizable within a private lobby.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's up to them again if they would want to, unleash that onto the world and kind of give it to the community to see what they come up with. Honestly, I imagine that TC play with a lot of those settings all the time and kind of test in house. Whether I imagine that more people having hands on with those kind of settings and playing with them in their own time, and more experts and whatnot and high level pro players could actually bring good benefit and positive change one day to the game if they were able to just get their hands on those really cool tools. I I think a lot of the damage and stats and stuff with this game can actually be adjusted on a slider. If it is quantitative basically, the stats, and a lot of stats are probably simply inputs and outputs, and there is opportunity there perhaps to really change things and see what comes about. It's just a question of whether TC want to really hone in on certain tunings, I guess, on what they feel they've really tested in-house rigorously, kind of feel what's best for the game, and put them out in those kind of like different tunings. They have got that, by the way, like different tunings in private matches. And they kind of put those out there and try and like balance on their end. I think it comes down to them basically.
I think almost a bigger thing than having a custom tuning like that are the types of private matches, or the types of special event type things that you can do. Changing character movement speed and health and weapons in Guardian. So one thing I've been bringing up since Gears 4 is Juggernaut Guardian, where the Guardian moves a little bit slower, has a ton of health, maybe slow regen speed. Like, giving options like that, or the person carrying the flag in Gridiron can have slower or faster movement speed. Anything that's not necessarily trying to make a new tuning for the game and making it more competitive, but something that can create that new griff ball, something that can create a fun game type that people just want to have fun and play.
Infected was a mode like that came out in Halo as well. That came from custom settings like that. There's so many things that they could open up the doors to if they chose to. But that's not the world that we live in currently. So
yeah. Let's see. So I think we'll probably go ahead and wrap up then. If you guys want to say just closing thoughts on the various topics that we've talked about today, and also let people know where they can find you online. I'm going to have all of your links down in the description once this goes up on YouTube. But yeah, Toby, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, cool. Once again, thank you for having me. It's been fun, and it's a platform again to speak about these really important concerns and talking points. PC and crossplay is a big topic now for everyone, from casual players up to the top esports players. I think it's a very, very important subject now because of Series X and S and them launching and really bridging the gap now between PC, to kind of like highlight the main talking points, I guess, on advantages of PC and whatnot, is the pure fact that the Series X and Series S are literally average PCs now. They are, if we do keep with this platform-based crossplay system that we have now in this game, if we keep that, Series X and Series S will have to be classified as PCs as far as I'm concerned, because they are literally leagues in front of the current console, and they are an average PC in performance in every metric, whether that be input lag, FPS. I don't think FOV is a huge deal whether we have sliders or not. I'll say that very quickly, not at all. I think input-based matchmaking is the way to go. I hope we see that in the future. A lot of PC players disagree with me on that because of the size of the mouse and keyboard community. Is what it is, though.
So you would say input-based over forced?
I should have answered that earlier, actually, when I come to think of it. But I think maybe input-based is better, but it kind of, you have to draw the line somewhere. Like forced in social. I think if we get a true ranked mode where it's literally the only the esports modes and the esports settings, and you really dial in on competitive integrity, and you want the absolute perfect mirror of the highest level of competitive integrity, don't have it forced there. Have it input based in that system. TDM, Guardian, any modes that are compare similar to Arms Race, force crossplay. There are much bigger concerns to competitive integrity than whether someone's using the mouse and keyboard or not when it comes to those more casual modes. So yeah, it's where you draw the line basically. Esports, don't force it. The most competitive modes, don't force it. TDM, Guardian, anything that's not Koth. Koth is in a grey area right now. Just force it at that point, definitely.
Let's see. Sorry, I interrupted you during your little closing thing. Is there anything else you wanted to?
I mean, my Twitter handle is just below. I can see in the stream. If you want to follow me there, Toby Campbell _. Go ahead. Twitter is the main place to find me. I used to stream a lot. I have about 5k followers. My channel's partnered, but I've not streamed on there in a long, long time. I used to cast a lot of community events on there. That should change in the future with how EU's been going. So if you are interested in Gears Esports and European Gears Esports in particular, do follow me there as well. / Toby Campbell. Yeah, / Toby Campbell. Yeah, is my Twitch channel. Other than that, yeah, again, thank you for having me, Chaps and Tac-Com, and it's been a pleasure. And yeah.
All right. Yeah. Neon?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the PC side of the equation, so that's what today is mainly focused on, is if you're a console player and you haven't had the chance to play keyboard and mouse, I would highly encourage anyone to at least give it a shot as it is currently on whichever console that you have, whether it's a Xbox One S or Xbox on the original or even a Series X. Just give it a shot and just kind of see what you think about it if you have the ability to do so. I do believe that everybody, as they start to get new consoles, I eventually believe most of them will, you're going to have a lot of great experiences with in Gears 5 in particular, but just other games as well. The fact that you're getting these additional frames alone, I think, will help most players. I would definitely agree that the field of view slider issue that you commonly see online, especially on Twitter and the Reddit subreddit, I don't really feel like it's going to be a major issue. It's really a preference issue. You might be able to see a little bit more, but it's mainly out to your sides. You're not really going to have an advantage if you have a Nasher and you're used to playing at 80 field of view, because as I mentioned earlier, which Toby also referenced, but it does play differently when you increase the field of view slider, and that's not just in Gears. This is every game. So just because you're starting to get potential field of view sliders in most games, it does not necessarily mean you're at an advantage. I would also say that a lot of this stuff, though, also comes down to hardware. For those that are on PC, there's a lot of PC players that have top tier machines, but there's also a lot of people that I know that are playing Gears 5 on laptops, and they're not having a superior experience. So it's highly possible that when you go buy these new consoles, regardless of it's the Series S or the X, you're going to have a much better experience than they might be. So you might be at the advantage with frames and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. The PC community is overall, I would say, fairly small, but I do believe it's increasing. I see a lot of people that are playing Gears 5 talking about, like, hey, what computer should I build, or what should I buy, or what should I get? And I think that's a good thing to just generally increase the population of not just PC, but for Gears 5, because I think overall the community, I've said this many times, is I feel like the population isn't where it should be. So I think that this is just a great way to force. I said force crossplay. I think it's great, but I could definitely agree with where Toby was saying, if you want to have the pinnacle of top tier esports, then make it input only. I could definitely get down with that. I would have no objections. So I think a lot of people are going to be happy if you have already ordered or pre-ordered or know that you're going to be getting the console within the next month or so. You're going to have a really life-changing experience with how you play games if you have never had a taste of PC gameplay. Macroing is obviously not an issue, but I've said this on multiple. This is just a general statement now before I give my handles. Is I really hope that TC opens up the door to allowing more community-focused events, whether it's community-made or self-made. They have held back a lot for like Chap said earlier, polishing, but I just don't feel like that's an excusable action anymore. We're over a year. We're still not where we should be. The game definitely needs a shot in the arm of some adrenaline or something like that. And I think that more community engagement events is really nice. So I just hope that we start seeing a lot more changes that were promised back in the summit than what we've seen today. And of course, that's not saying that they're not working on stuff, but I just hope that when we get the big patch for Operation 5, that we start seeing a lot of these things come to light, because I do think that Operation 5 releasing around the time that the new consoles come out is going to be really, really big for the the promise of the future of this particular game. So with that said, again, I think I've been on here a couple times, so I appreciate you for allowing me to be on here, Chaps, and it's a pleasure to do all types of topics. I've done PvE, I've done this, I've done community, and now I've had the ability to talk about PC. So I've kind of touched on all topics. I'm not the top tier esports player, but I definitely have the experience of playing PC, and I can say that if you're just a player that's playing Horde or Escape and you want to play a slightly better version of the game, you're going to want to have it on the console or the PC. It's a very enjoyable experience. But with all that said, though, it's truly a pleasure every time that I get an invite. So thank you for allowing me to come on here and voice my pleasures and displeasures with the franchise and the game that it is today. So you can find me on Twitter at neon_velocity, as seen on the channel on the screen. But then you can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/neonvelocity. So thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for being on, both of you. Thanks for being on. I think this was a great discussion. It's unfortunate Terry couldn't join us. So I'm going to have the PC Discord link down below in the description for the YouTube video. Terry is, was he the head admin on the PC Discord? He also, if you go over to the Years Reddit right now, there's a thread for the PC community nights that he's hosting. But yeah, this was great. Being someone who doesn't really play on PC, I learned a lot. Hopefully the people watching this learned a lot. Thanks to everyone watching live. Thanks again to the guest for today, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.